Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is part 8 of the Tafsir book, Pondering over the Quran, Tadabbur al-Quran by Amin Islahi. And we continue to read in the explanation of Surah Al-Fatiha. An introduction to the Quran. This surah occupies a prime place in the Quran as its preamble and the opening chapter. It is described in a hadith by various titles that reinforce its significance. For instance, it is called Fatihatul Kitab, or the introduction to the Quran. Appropriately, it has been given the name Ummul Kitab, or the essence of the Quran. It has also been described as Al-Kafiyah and Al-Muwafiyah, meaning that it encompasses the essential Quranic teachings. In our view, there are three considerations which make this surah a most appropriate introduction to the Quran: the origin of religion and the basis of divine law. Firstly, it explains the origin of religion, deen, and the basis of divine law, sharia. It answers such questions as what motivates the human being to adore and worship God? How is this emotion generated in the human heart and manifested in practical life? It also defines the human being's first reaction to this emotion and how it propels him toward God, and how it propels him toward Allah, to surrender and to worship Him, as it also unveils the human being's deepest craving thereafter, and how it is born and awakened within him. A sensible person can readily understand and appreciate that a surah that provides answers to such basic questions does indeed richly deserve to occupy the prime place in the Quran as its opening chapter. From a close consideration of the answers it provides to the above questions, we find first and foremost that the surah teaches us that the signs of divine providence and grace, mercy and justice abound both within and around us in the universe. These generate a sincere sense of gratitude to Allah, our benefactor. This is the emotion that overwhelms and drives the human being to worship and adore and to call upon Him alone for guidance and support. At the same time, it also generates a strong urge and desire for the straight path, the path that would lead him to Allah. It is precisely in response to this human urge and need and the search for a straight path that Allah has throughout history sent His prophets and messengers to human beings, revealing His guidance and law to regulate human affairs. This is a natural path that the human being's religious quest takes, and which has been defined most succinctly in this surah. As such, it is rightly placed at the very beginning of the Quran as a preamble to it. Basic teachings of the Quran. Secondly, this surah contains and provides essential guidance concerning the fundamental teachings of the Quran. These may be summed up under three headings: Tawheed, the affirmation of the oneness of God; Akhirah, the hereafter; and Risala, prophethood. It thus contains, in a nutshell, as it were, the entire spectrum of the Quranic teachings and guidance. In the first two verses, it states that Allah alone is the sovereign and the sustainer of all creation, and that He alone is worthy of our praise and gratitude. The third verse points to a day of reckoning with strong indications of the oneness of Allah. For on that day, no one but He alone shall have all power and authority. For on that day, no one but He alone shall have all power and authority. In the fourth verse, the worshipper completely and unconditionally surrenders himself to the mercy of his sovereign and sustainer, which is the very essence of Tawheed, or belief in the oneness of Allah. Its fifth verse contains the authentic supplication, which clearly shows that the human being stands in need of guidance to find the straight path provided for him by Allah through revelation to chosen prophets. Simultaneously, it also explains what are the obligations of a people towards the divine law and guidance that they are blessed with, the reward for those who appreciate these blessings and are grateful to their sustainer for them, and who abide by them faithfully. In short, all the basic principles of Islam are epitomized in this short surah. This is done in such a manner that the entire edifice of Islamic life can be shown to be built around these verses. These few verses contain, as it were, the whole of the glorious Quran, when expanded and fully explained. The title jewel holds within it a whole universe of meaning, the entire reality and wisdom, subsequently propounded and explained in the 30 parts of the Quran. The real reason for the revelation of the Quran. The real reason for revelation of the Quran is to guide all human beings. Before the Quran, Allah had guided the Jews and the Christians to abide by the straight path and invite others to it. But they failed on both counts. They neither followed it themselves nor did they convey their prophets' true teachings to others. Instead, they distorted and changed them beyond recognition. This surah is the human being's supplication for rescue from the errors of the past. And thanks to this supplication, humankind received the light of the Quran, dispelling the darkness of ignorance and error. The surah is also a most potent supplication for understanding and gaining an insight into the Quran, for seeking guidance in our practical life, and for giving us the strength to persevere on the straight path. All this renders this surah suitable as a preamble to the Book of Allah. Relationship with subsequent surahs. From the above, the relationship of this surah with the Quran as a whole should be quite clear. However, how does it relate to the surah that follows it, Surah Al-Baqarah? Looking at the end of Surah Al-Fatiha and the opening of Surah Al-Baqarah, we find that the relationship between the two surahs is very much similar to a supplication and the response it evokes, or the acceptance it receives. Surah Al-Fatiha ends with the words, "Guide us the straight path." Guide us the straight way, the way of those whom you have favored, those who have not incurred your displeasure, and those who have not gone astray. Immediately thereafter follows Surah Al-Baqarah with the opening words, Alif Lam Mim. This is the book of Allah. There is no doubt that it is from Allah and a guidance for those who fear Him. It is as if the divine guidance sought by the servant in Surah Al-Fatiha is given to him right away to abide by and to follow. When a perceptive person witnesses such an instantaneous response to his supplication, he is naturally overwhelmed with deep sense of gratitude and praise for Allah. We must also keep in view another aspect of this supplication. It not only seeks guidance to the path of the blessed, but also protection against the ways of the deviant and the condemned who incur divine wrath. Surah Al-Baqarah is thus not only the surah of revival of the Abrahamic community, but it is also an indictment of errant Jews. The brief allusion found in Surah Al-Fatiha to the blessed on the one hand and to those who incur divine wrath on the other is fully elaborated in Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Imran can be seen in a similar light. It refutes and rejects the innovations introduced in true religion in the name of Christianity, while explaining the true teachings of prophets Abraham and others, especially Prophet Jesus. In fact, that in the arrangement of the Quran, these two lengthy surahs are placed immediately after Surah Al-Fatiha clearly shows that they both elucidate the acceptance of the supplication made in Al-Fatiha, and further elaborate on what is succinctly alluded to in its last portion. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.